All right, hello, Talk fans, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the No Coast Defenders, or as we are coming to be known, the one guy who likes things and the two who are going to shit on him.
So
I'm a
before
pigeon.
before we start, I want to shit on one thing. You vary it up. Is it talk fans or pod fans?
I don't want to get too stuck in my ways, so
Okay, that's fair. All right, I like talk fans then.
yeah, I want to change it up. I think that was the origin of that is my brother for his master's, instead of doing a report, did a podcast on a subject, and he asked me to
Oh,
host it for him.
that's awesome.
And so we called it Dill Talk. And so I said, hello, Talk fans. Just, we didn't rehearse anything because the Dillcox boys don't rehearse. We just decided to wing it. And that's how it came out. And I alternate between Talk and Pod fans now because I can't decide which one I like better, honestly. So we're going to say it's because I don't want to get stale with it, but it's two options. I rotate. So
Well, if it's a big deal to you, it's a big deal to me.
I appreciate that. All right, so Dan, I know you reached out for feedback from this, but I want to point out we did get some people that did say they enjoyed it, and you were very kind to all those people saying, "I'm glad you enjoyed it." But
I genuinely mean that too. I genuinely mean. I love when people enjoy these things.
and I know you do, but this is something I've been wondering about because you do tend to get more negative feedback than I'm seeing from the overall public talking about this. And I just wonder if it's because you're so openly pessimistic about it that people who don't want to talk about it with you, who liked it, aren't posting, whereas the people who feel the same way from you, they are using you as their rally cry. So what I'm saying is, as much as you just told me you really enjoyed Kate Herron, she is not coming back for season 2 because of you.
I actually just read a beautiful interview with her about why she's not coming back. It makes so much sense. But no, it's funny because at the comic shop, I guess that people have said, "Oh, you're being a Dan," when people say they don't enjoy things. But I generally love when people do enjoy it, and the people on social media don't necessarily tell me, but I get a ton of shit, at the comic shop, in passing, through text messages where they don't want to have this long drawn out thing because the unfortunate thing that happens in social media that's happened in the past is, I've gone back and forth with people, and then some people are so passionate that they make it a personal thing, which makes other people not want to talk or post anything. It's I don't want to come here for some real shit,
Yeah.
And so that's happened in the past with our more toxic fans. So I do think it's interesting, if I'm to say something's negative about something, somebody's like, "Oh, now's my chance to say it is negative," because they don't have to stand Marvel. But I love when people come on. Justin Tromley is one who I don't think we have ever agreed on a single thing, but he always comes back, and we always have spirited discussions about it, and I love it. But it's very interesting to me. But I don't want to be the reason Kate left because I do like her a lot.
No, I honestly, it feels like as much as everyone thought this Loki season was going to be one thing, it was exactly what I expected. I told you guys, I thought this was just to set up the future movies. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what it was. It also got us to the point where Loki's no longer a villain or an anti-hero. It made Loki a good person, a guy who wants to be better, a guy who wants to be a hero. So now I think the second season is going to be something completely different. It's going to be more of that time-hopping adventure everyone thought this one was going to be. And I don't think Kate Herron's I think she could do anything she wants to do. She's immensely talented, but I kind of think she's wasted in a straight up buddy cop time thing. So
what was interesting is I was reading an interview and she said where she was done was where Sylvie kicks Loki into the other realm, and the scene was supposed to be slowed down more than it was to reflect on all the emotions and the whole journey he had gone through. But they had to, when they were doing cuts, they had to cut away from that kind of pause. Yeah. But she said that was her swan song. That was her last thing that she wanted in there personally for her journey to be complete. And I thought that was just really special that, she had this one moment that she connected with that she was looking forward to that she needed, and she did get that moment to an extent. So it's her journey was complete, but that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I'm glad that's something she followed. That's something I've heard a lot about from people that have been covering Loki on how that was really a moment we could see Loki's personal journey where it had come to. because he's always betrayed. He's never been the victim of a betrayal. So to see that moment, you could have seen one of two looks on Loki's face. You could have seen him gone sour, and then that could have been interesting because Loki could have gone from like a herald anti-hero type thing to a straight up villain in that moment. But they chose to go the other way, which is fitting for this journey we watched him on for 6 episodes of becoming like a more complete, well-rounded person. So I'm glad they went that route with it. It could have been interesting the other way, but that was it's tough to say the best moment because we got an epic level performance from who's going to be our major villain heading forward.
God, so amazing.
But I think that subtle moment for me was the best. And to hear that was what Kate was pulling for, I would have seen a longer version of that, but that was great. And it tied into him searching for Mobius to fix that mistake instantly. Like everything about Loki's personal journey was answered. I know that was one of your things, Dan, was you feel like the TVA and the Loki story are different and that they shouldn't try to give a resolution to both. And they didn't. And I thought you were kind of wrong in that. I wanted a resolution to both, but I like how it worked. I like how it worked out, and I'm glad they kind of this individual like chapter in Loki's life we got a resolution, but the TVA thing this was a teaser for what the TVA was going to be. So,
well, the interesting thing, because I knew we wouldn't get a TVA closure because we need Kang. It's like that wasn't going to come. But the interesting thing about it is that season 2 wasn't confirmed in Marvel by like Feige until episode 4. And so that's just very interesting to me because for the studio that plans everything, and I don't mean publicly confirmed, I mean, they didn't know who was on board or what they were doing. To know that, I'm more excited about this upcoming season than I was about this show because they could literally use this show to answer any plot holes or anything that comes out of these future movies. It could be that they kind of like, yeah, we kind of, screwed the pooch here, but we can fix that here. We can answer that here. And I think that's kind of a cool opportunity. And actually more studios should do something like that. But I just, when you talk about those arcs, like how I mentioned, I feel like, no, I didn't expect any resolution to the season, but I wanted more full character journeys, for everybody involved. If I'm watching them all, I'm supposed to care. I want to feel like something has progressed there or some sort of cycle has been complete for the characters. You can have a cliffhanger and still do that. I didn't feel like I got that for a single character. And so that, to me, as a whole for the show, made it not work for me. Now, with that being said, I think some of the acting performances that we got out of this show are probably some of the best the MCU's had, from classic Loki to Immortus, spot on. And I'm so excited about I would see 200 variants of this character, and be so happy every time. But it's definitely interesting, but to know that they had to change the initial story for it to open up a season 2 also makes me wonder what I missed if I would have gotten that little piece I was looking for as an end cap if they weren't going to pursue that. So, because she did say the finale we got was not the finale that was planned.
And that's not too surprising. That's been just the whole pandemic era of these TV shows has changed the needs. I want to get back to the character arc thing, but first we have to give our boy Tim his flowers because he predicted He Who Remains, and he was mostly right. So just a different. I think it's hilarious because you were right in the sense that he was called He Who Remains, but it was a variation and an original take on He Who Remains, and we know how much you love that instead of just giving the comic book character.
Yeah. But I will say that it worked. My original complaint with the episode at first was like I didn't mind. I love Jonathan Majors being in there. I actually didn't mind him being, Kang, essentially. It was just the way the character was acted at first. Jonathan Majors did his job very well, but like this is a guy that's been alone in this tower for Lord knows how long, and they made him insane to an extent, but I feel like I felt like it should have been better if they either didn't make him crazy at all, or they just went like all out like crazy. Because this is the guy who hasn't, you think hasn't seen another person being so high up at the top of things. But the second time I watched it, he was perfect. I appreciated him even more, and he was very ominous and foreboding in the best way. We needed that um, that tone and that inflection to kind of set the mood for the rest of the episode, and it kept me very on edge a little bit until finally you saw Sylvie like do her thing to Loki and then lunge toward him. But it's just like that meme, that damn smile. But with him, it's that damn wink. I love it.
A lot of people, I think that this. Oh, what were you saying, Greg?
I was just going to say about North's performance. I just love that they took a guy who came from stage acting. They essentially put him in a one-act play, told him to chew the scenery, and then gave him an apple as a prop to
the classic
to literally chew the scenery with. And it was kind of fun to watch just two actors we've also seen who can chew a scene themselves watch. Like, that was awe-inspiring. And I liked the level of this guy's kind of crazy, but not fully crazy on two fronts, because you had to give that Loki that doubt. Like, Loki's like, wait, these are the two options. Let's go talk to someone about this.
Yeah.
You needed that little bit of doubt, and you needed to drive home that Sylvie could still want to plunge the dagger in him, even with what he said. And then to end with the statue of Kang replacing the timekeepers, just to like yes, the Kang we just saw is controlling time and isn't necessarily good, but he was using a figurehead. I always equate religion with Aesop's fables. I think they're kind of the same thing. They're just stories to tell a moral guide. And in this show, in the TVA, that was the timekeepers. But the Kang we're going to get probably in season 2 or in one of the movies before this, he's not using some metaphor. He's just that heavy-handed fascist ruler now. So I thought it was important that he not be completely crazy yet, because we're going to get many, many crazier Kangs. We'll probably get like a more stable Krang too. Like, North is going to have fun. Like, they got a phenomenal actor and they gave him a role he is not going to get sick of doing, and it will not grow stale for him, because he's going to play so many different variations of it.
And go ahead, Dan.
No, you go ahead.
No, you've been waiting patiently.
Well, no, I've seen a disconnect between the comic readers and the MCU watchers with this series, because a lot of the stuff I saw, on the internet, or like messages I was getting, was, how do they really just kill the villain that easily? Well, you weren't listening to the dialogue enough, but also, like, as comic readers, we understand that there's steps to get to Kang. Like, we totally fully grasp that, and if you do a quick Wikipedia, you can. But I have a lot of friends who simply just watch this stuff for mindless entertainment without the background. And so to them, they thought it was super cheese. And to me, I finally enjoyed a moment in Loki. So I'm like, Jesus, the one time I'm happy, everybody else is like, no, this is awful. But I've noticed that disconnect a lot with the show in terms of the villain and what unfolded in that episode, where all of a sudden, the more comic loving ones were brought back in, because we talked about how the accuracy between the comics and the show are completely off the rails. In some senses, that's good, because you don't have to, be beholden to canon, and other people want that. But it kind of flipped for this finale, where everybody was finally like, oh yeah, the comics, man. So it's been an interesting thing to see and to watch, and to hear my friends who had loved it up until that point, and they're like, they can't just kill him like that, and me being like, oh, they just killed him like that. So it's funny to see how the script was flipped on that.
There are just 3 quick points I have to make. One, I was very surprised and kind of giddy when I learned that all these huge comic book nerds around me, including the guy who runs our LCS, had no idea who He Who Remains was in the comics. I found that very amusing. Um, the next is I really have to appreciate just how just Loki's tone when he was towards the end of the conversation with Immortus, and how like he wasn't talking with his grandeur anymore, his sense of grandeur. He wasn't speaking theatrically. He like this was the first time that I've seen him speak with such um, intense focus. Um, you know, granted, it's something as basic as like knowing the stakes, but it was just really, um, I guess that kind of added to the tension because that's something that you've never seen in the character up until now, and um, if it's something that can get Loki to be serious for for a couple minutes, shit's going down. And then the last thing is, of all the credit that needs to be given, is Natalie Holt with her goddamn score. How she works the synth into oh my god, it's just incredible. I that's all I was focusing on the second time I was watching this, and it really makes this show unique just in itself.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because it really is this perfect blend of like this futuristic sci-fi eerie sound with like these Norse feels in the vibe. Like it, yeah, the score is phenomenal. I think
it almost takes you out of the room that you're sitting in. Like you're immersed in the actual set.
Yeah.
Like it totally pulls you out of your environment and brings you into theirs.
And I think it really helped like North's performance in this. I think especially since he was behind the desk seated talking, and then you have the score that's taking you out of your own world. It really was almost a play, and which gives me mixed feelings because obviously I would have loved more at the TVA to see. I would have liked a little bit more with Renslayer and Mobius. I think
B-15.
B-15, like
she was a badass.
Yeah, B-15 I really didn't get enough of. The Renslayer, we didn't get like a complete arc, but we got the tease of the arc when she said, I'm going to go find free will. That sets you up and says, okay, we're going to get Renslayer to be a major player. And I mean, Mobius got a full arc just to then have it erased, which is like a gut punch and another gut punch for our Loki to have to overcome because now he made a friend. He made a friend for the first time ever. Now that friend doesn't remember him. He fell in love and then he was betrayed by that person. And then even the look on Sylvie's face when the timeline starts splintering behind her after she stabs Kang, and it's just like, oh, and that's her arc too. Like, it doesn't feel like a resolution of an arc, but this woman spent her whole life on the run from time bandits with a single-minded goal, and the only person she started to trust was the least trustworthy person she could have. And so she betrayed him and achieved what she'd been looking for, and it fell flat in splintered time. Like, so that could be interesting because now we've got a crossroads for Sylvie too. Is she going to make amends or is she going to lean into this dark side that the face said she's going to have to try and make amends, but I thought that was a beautiful arc as well.
Yeah, and now he's right back. Loki, from a character standpoint, is right back to where he was when he first walked into the TVA, and
so do you think
very poetic
the TVA Loki is in right now is Renslayer's TVA? Because that's kind of what I think.
Oh, that Renslayer's using like a figurehead Kang, like Kang used the Time Lords.
Like where Mobius is now. Yeah.
I didn't think that at all, but that's brilliant. I like that idea.
She took the world by basically, I mean, we don't know where she went, but we know that she's pretty well knowing about what's going on. We know that she also knows of Mortis, Kang, whatever you want to call him, but she also knows how to alter time. And so where she went to take control could be her taking control of the TVA.
Yeah.
And so, yes, everybody's reverted, and it doesn't mean that it's the TVA she was in. It's a TVA of a different area.
Yeah, I think you took it a step further than I did, because I just thought that Renslayer was the backup plan, that she was that in tuned and as plugged as she was, even though she wasn't completely, because the original plan was to have these two Lokis basically work as bodyguards to help control the time. And the backup plan is Renslayer, and Renslayer knowing how to do exactly what that Kang had done. But yeah, I was thinking we were going to get that was going to be part of the next season, but no, it's possible that Renslayer's already conquered and is now the power hungry warlord of the time.
I'm just looking at, I was looking at like the release date and when we get Marvels, and this would fit perfectly with the Marvels movie too, especially with another woman of power, on the opposite side. I was just kind of looking at the timeline, like, wow, if they had to battle this one who, like in the comics, she was fully capable of so much and she had a kick-ass suit. As opposed to it's all just Kang now, we'd have two villains working against each other for the same thing while the heroes try to interject, and it just makes so much sense for this phase.
I could see that. Tim, what did you think?
Oh, no. I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry. I had to do that to people.
Sorry.
Tim, you and I are not a good combination for people's thoughts, because we both like to vamp. So the Marvel's release date is kind of interesting, but I've honestly seen from WandaVision to this as us almost like splintering the MCU into multiple factions.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to get a Young Avengers faction, which is going to kind of bridge everything. But it honestly just feels like almost we are going to have a more street level side of Marvel and a more higher level sorcery. And so in my mind, the Marvels, which is kind of crazy based on the powers we're going to have in the Marvels film, but that almost seems more street level side, even though they're all overpowered up the wazoo over there.
If I'm correct, it's going to introduce the X-Men. So,
well, every project we have in Phase 4 introduces the X-Men.
No, this is in a different way.
To be fair, there have been reports that mutants have already been introduced.
Well, yeah, it makes sense with Mod Report and all that, but
No.
are you talking about a Black Widow?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just you don't introduce a character like Renslayer and the TVA and not explore Renslayer and the TVA further. So I just feel like this third TVA, we're going to get a battle between her and Kang. It's what I foresee. I'm not saying season 2. I just think at some point we'll get their love arc and we'll get a battle, and that could span the entire phase because he is quite a big bad to introduce.
Well, and especially since they've already given the implications of how many Kangs we can see. The implication is it's infinite. Like, we could get a different Kang in every one of these projects. Like, he could be the big bad in all the upcoming movies and be a different version. And they cast a guy who could play different versions of that same character.
Me and Dan actually said that when Moon Knight rolls around, we'll see a version of Ramatut.
We have to. Yes. Egypt, yes. Greg, you mentioned the street level stuff, and I'm really hoping for this, and I don't know if it's too much to cram into an already packed film, but I fully believe, Spider-Man's more of a street level character. I'm hoping that that's our introduction to our Daredevil, Luke Cage, the New York City folks.
Defenders.
There. Yeah, without calling them that because we're still not far enough removed from Netflix rights, but to introduce us to those characters, at least lay the groundwork for it. Because that would then set up the groundwork for Miles eventually when Sony runs out of money and keeps doing their crap. So I don't know. Maybe we'll have a Morbius movie by then, but probably not. But I think the street level stuff's interesting because of just how many characters can be introduced through that level too. Even like an Iron Fist, it's crazy when you think about appearances, and a lot of the character arcs go with first appearances of certain characters. And I think about Iron Fist, first appearance of Sabretooth. There's so many just cool things that could potentially happen with introducing the ground game.
Well, and
going completely off point, but
Spider-Man, just like in the comic books, Spider-Man is always the best character to throw in the middle of a cosmic level event because the way Peter Parker always like speaks and reacts, you'd think he's out of his depths because he's the guy in tights in New York City. But I mean, superhuman strength, superhuman brain, has in timeline wise, he's got more experience as a superhero than anyone outside of Captain America and Wolverine, essentially, because those two are ageless. I guess Bucky, but Bucky was in ice and a villain, so like
Ice baby.
no matter what the time frame they put, if like Peter Parker's in his mid-20s or his early 30s, he's always a guy who's now been doing this for decades and has been in so many cosmic levels. So it's a perfect character to have in the middle of those.
And as much as he'd have been in, and the type of hero he is, at the end of the day, he could be 80 years old and he would still be us. He'd still be that average American that people can relate to.
Yeah, that's why despite the popularity of Wolverine, it's always been Captain America or Spider-Man as that logo in the corner. And I mean, Captain America was like the first, but Spider-Man was always the most relatable. And introducing the multiverse and the fact that you can always keep a young version of Spider-Man. I mentioned last week that the ages Peter Parker's been in the comics are always wild swings because you can only do so much of that character before you regress him in age or you have to age him again. And with the multiverse, we're going to see 3 generations of Spider-Man in a movie. And it's just so great that we did see this current Spider-Man jump on a fucking ship going to what he must have assumed was his certain doom, and to an extent was. So, and that's like the perfect Spider-Man. So the fact that they're using Spider-Man to have these multiverses to work with Strange, I think that's just brilliant. And like you said, it's a perfect bridge between street level. Ant-Man's a great bridge for street level because whether it's going to be Scott Lang or Hank Pym, like Scott Lang is more street, Hank Pym with that when he was doing that scientist supreme and used science to create magic. Like just the combination of those two characters are always a great bridge. And the Marvels could be too, because you have like Miss Marvel, just in the fact that she extends. She basically has Reed Richards' powers without his brain. So she's a street level who gets thrown into these crazy situations too, because that's what popular characters do, is get thrown in galactic situations where they probably are not the most ready person for it.
Circling back to what Dan was saying real quick about introducing the not defenders. I down the road, if Sony and Marvel get their shit together with each other, I'd like to see some Midnight Suns. But
I would love to, and I actually just sent books in for grading of that because I know it's got to come.
But that would still have a lot of setup to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Runslayer's controlling the TVA now. I love that take.
Yeah, but does she really want control of the TVA?
Yeah. She wants control of what she knows. And in that moment, that's what she knows.
And that fits the arc. Like back to the glorious purpose thing that is at the heart of what they're doing. She believed so much and put so much blind trust. And she did have more information than other people, so it was a little bit less blind trust, but that could make it hurt all that much more for her. That she gave it all to just one guy. And we've seen that when he can't read the future anymore, he's fallible. Like he overestimated what was going to happen with Loki and Sylvie. He thought they were going to just go with his plan. Loki wanted to find the third option, and Sylvie went with the killing him option. And so we can see like that future's infallible. I could see Renslayer saying, yeah, I'm not going to restore it the way it was. I'm going to restore it the way I want to, which in itself could then lead to, the infuriating and wonderful thing about time travel and the time travel premises. We could just keep cycling and we could get like a fresh Mobius who forgets everything every time, who's just longing to be on jet skis, but doing his duty to the time.
I know he's not going anywhere on us. I just really look forward to seeing what's to come with him.
So one question that I was thinking about is how much is Doctor Strange really going to be involved with taking this down? Because if you think about the timeline of things, and I've been wrapping my head around this for so long. We get Spider-Man in December, we get Doctor Strange in March, and we're not getting Quantumania until like at least July because it doesn't have a set month yet. I feel I'm going to go ahead and give you my Mephisto Reed Richards lock. This is going to work out like a Marvel event in the comics where you'll have like an overarching storyline, which would be like the next Avengers movie, because that's, it's the only thing that's exists right now that's not a solo film. And all the subsequential movies will have everyone interacting with King like you would like spin-offs, like King in Black. Everyone had their King in Black issues. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
No,
well, you're right. And the interesting thing is the other villains that are going to be introduced too, and how does he fit in with them? But then my only concern is like, so say they kill a villain, are we going to give a shit knowing that time can just be changed? What? For me, it's what am I going to care about now that I know that at some point it's set to reset, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, that could be true of comics at any time in any form. I think the one thing to take to heart is Feige has reportedly told the creators, you can't just bring the character back. Like, this character has to serve a greater purpose. So we shouldn't be seeing people just kill and bring people back willy-nilly. It should serve a greater storytelling purpose. Now, will they all those storytelling purposes be perfect? No, but at least like the direction is there. I think the interesting thing that came to really ahead with the Black Widow movie was we talk about Feige and his control, but Feige only really got absolute control now. He was answering to guys in New York who weren't as into the creative thing, which is why it took so long to get the Black Widow film, because they didn't want it, because women-driven superhero movies aren't going to make money to these money counters. Feige would have given us Black Widow forever ago, and that hurt Black Widow to an extent, because I think he gave us a story for Black Widow that fit into where he wanted it in his head. But it'll be interesting going forward because Disney has given Feige control. Like, he now runs it. He's not answering to other people about these things. This is now Feige's baby, and he's letting the creatives create with his oversight. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think you're 100% right, Tim. Like, Strange isn't going to fix everything. We've been told that's going to be the closest thing we're going to get to a horror film in the MCU. So he's going to be battling the evil, like the really darker, creepy things. And I think Scarlet Witch along for that ride is perfect for that idea that the horrors of the multiverse will be in Strange. The weird wackiness of it's going to be in Spider-Man.
And I think that's a perfect bridge, and that's how it should be done. Yeah. I mean, as we're seeing, everything's splintered, everything's changing, so it's all going to be loosely based there. But we still have our cosmic stuff going on. We have to figure out why the Eternals are here. Well, obviously, we know why the Eternals are coming now because time's fucked. But we have to see which part of it they're responding to, because my hunch is that they're all going to be responding to different parts of what's happening from this. And so, like Tim did mention, with the separate branches of the comics, it's each one's responding to a different thing, and then at some point, everybody comes together and we get that moment. I hope it's more absolute carnage than it is King in Black, so it's actually cohesive and solid. But we'll see what happens there. But no, I think you're absolutely right, and I think that there's certain, Greg, when you mentioned like the street level and the cosmic and all that stuff, they all have their own purpose for all of this, and I'm excited to see them be those characters solving it without having to necessarily be completely connected the whole time. And I mean, don't forget, we still have the next Guardians journey to, kind of tie in space and Earth. So a lot of fun to be had.
It'll be interesting to see how they involve it, if at all. since they've always been, you break it down on the street level and then the cosmic level, but Thor and the Guardians have always felt more distant from the other properties. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep that separate with something as big of a threat as Gore, or if they will involve King somehow.
Yeah. I just I don't know, man. I want a Kang pop up in every movie, kind of like the toasty guy in the Mortal Kombat games. Just pop up in the bottom of the screen, let us know you're still there. Like man, that was such a great portrayal. Just a taste.
I just love that these series are Wanda and Loki specifically, like Falcon and Winter Soldier set up its own portion of the movie world. But two of these three series set up the upcoming movies, which are setting up for the Secret Wars series. And I think
Secret Invasion is going to be the series.
The Secret Invasion, but there is a rumored Secret Wars series coming as well. So, that could be a series, that could be a movie, but
yeah,
that's all kind of started with the intro to Talos there, and then that we saw him in the end credit scene. Or no, we didn't see him, did we? The end credit scene from
Talos wanted to speak to her.
That's right. Yes.
Another scroll, but
yes, that's right.
Yeah. So no, Secret Invasion we're getting for sure, but there's a rumor we're going to get a Secret Wars as well. Now, whether or not that's going to be more of the Spider-Man gets the symbiote suit, or it's going to be the more recent Secret Wars, which I hear they're planning Doom to be the major villain of a future phase. So that would go hand in hand with like a more telling of the modern Secret Wars from a couple years ago. And which also ties in perfectly with at least a version of Kang and the Fantastic Four and multiverses. So it's interesting how well they could tie these things up or not at all. And I'll be interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, definitely. Connecting pieces are a lot of fun.
I have a couple questions that pertain specifically to predictions for the next season of Loki. But before we get to that, was there anything you guys wanted to wrap up about with this season we just got done with?
I love that. I was reading the interview with Kate Barron. Alligator Loki was actually just something that the writers were talking about, and it wasn't meant to be a Loki at all. It's literally just an alligator with a hat. And I just love her talking about that because clearly it's taken off like crazy, but it's just funny to see that they wanted to throw that out there just to see the reaction they got, and they got exactly what they thought they would.
Awesome.
Yeah, Tim, did you have any final thoughts about the series before?
No, nothing from me. I said my piece.
Okay. So I do have just a couple questions about what we think is going to happen in season 2 before we move past Loki, because time never stops. But do you guys think it's going to be called Loki, or is it going to be the TVA, or are we just going to go Loki still?
No, it'll
Loki.
still be Loki.
Yeah, I think there might be an apostrophe S.
Or
just an S.
Yeah, just an S.
Yeah, I could see it shifting more towards being focused on the hunters, and so I was wondering if maybe even if it gets like a subtitle like Loki, the time variant, like,
or I mean, yeah, like Agent Loki. It very well could be. It's so hard to predict any of that because though they've laid the groundwork for whatever might happen, they haven't laid the groundwork for that. And without seeing, obviously it's going to be the end credit scenes to really tie everything up that's going to happen in that show, kind of how they've given us everything the whole time. So I think I need to see the first or second scene to set it up to really know what's going on. Because, I mean, somehow they're setting up the Dark Avengers, the Young Avengers, all the Marvel stuff, and now more TVA-based stuff, along with Kang as this overarching big bad. So that is so much to fucking juggle. I just need to see something to kind of make it make sense to me right now, because that's a lot for one phase.
And the other thing I was just curious about what your opinions are. Are we going to get more focus on B-15 in a second season?
I would love her to have her own show. I really hope we do.
Okay, so first of all, it's still gonna be called Loki because they wouldn't change the name just because the second season starts. But it also depends on when we get the second season. If everything gets resolved with Kang, I can see it going the way of Loki dealing with King Loki. I think that'd be an appropriate time to bring him in.
I thought that was going to happen in the finale on this season.
Yeah. As far as B-15, I don't see her getting that much emphasis because at the end of the day, she's still, just a TVA security guard, essentially.
She'll just be forever underutilized.
Granted, she's woke now, but
she's not woke anymore though. She's
not
been
anymore.
reset.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's gonna go pretty rudimentary.
So as of right now, that's set to release in 2023. That's the tentative release date.
That's quick turnaround with everything
very
still
quick
in
turnaround.
development. Yeah.
But I think they also have so much of what's going on in these other projects wrapped up that they can easily maneuver that because they know what's happening. And
Especially
that also tells me they're not bringing in much new cast, so they have to work with what they have pretty much too.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you guys have heard the story about Feige as a kid having, I think it was Terminator 2, how he didn't particularly like it, so he recreated it with his toys the way he thought it. And I know that's what we all kind of expected from this first season of Loki, but that's why I'd wondered about like a slight name change, because I do think, well, and especially with that release date, it's going to come on the heels of all these movies that are dealing with the multiverse. So it does feel like season 2 is going to play cleanup. And this is where we're going to get what we thought we were going to get here. Now, like, let's clean up some timeline inconsistencies, which is why I thought like the shift would be more to TVA and what the TVA actually does, because we didn't see too much of it. So that's why I thought we could get a slight name change and we could get more B-15. We don't. Mobius was featured heavily in the first season, but I think we'll get even more Mobius too. So
yeah,
if not completely centered around Mobius, if it does go the way of just sticking with the TVA.
The interesting thing is we have 14 releases after Loki that are on the books. It's crazy to me to think like we have 14 movies in here, because I mean, if you think about our arcs that we had with each other phase, it's at like we just went through one phase at 12 and the rest had like 6 or 8. 14. That's so many to think about, just this one character hanging in the balance. That's bigger than the Thanos level that we had. That's just blowing my mind. So seeing how all of that wraps up, and I don't count What If in there. I don't think they're going to link What If with the other stuff. I think that's just a fun on its own kind of thing. So I guess 13 projects that would impact 12, because the Christmas special doesn't count either, but 12 projects that would impact all of this. That's just wild to me. It's so much to tie together, but I'm excited to see where it goes. If anything, knowing I didn't enjoy this season of Loki, but I do love all of the potential that it put in motion.
Yeah, well, all the projects, that's the two sides of the coin of Feige getting all this control and then trusting the creatives. Is they can do all these projects because Feige's trusting the folks he's hiring to do the projects. But at the same point, that spreads everything thin, because it all still needs to tie in somehow. It's not like we're doing all standalone movies. We are getting 2 standalone projects, and that feels like maybe not enough in these, but who knows?
The interesting thing, because the tentative date was February 2023 for Loki. Do you know what else comes out February 2023?
I have no idea.
Quantumania. So if it's slated to come out right after that, and that's actually would be between Quantumania and Guardians.
Wait, I thought Quantumania didn't have a set month.
It is coming out on February 17th of 2023.
Oh, all right.
So that would put it smack in the middle, because there's 6 weeks between Ant-Man and the Guardians release. So we put it right in the middle of there is either a transition or a tie-up, and it's perfect because Kang gets revealed in that film as Kang. What a freaking buildup! That's just a mastermind plan. So,
well, and that's That's going to be interesting because the 17th obviously is that Friday, but we only have one Wednesday left in February after that, and it's the 22nd. And that feels like a quick turnaround to have this series.
Yeah, but it may be necessary. And actually, so I'm looking, Guardians doesn't come out till May 5th. So they could easily do like the last February and then squeeze that in before May, pretty much do February, March, April break, and then May release when everybody's itching for it. So I think instead of setting more stuff up, I think it's going to be a resolution to a lot of stuff. But just seeing the sheer number of projects that are in the mix and as connected as they don't seem to be, I think I mentioned this to Tim at the shop one day, how none of this stuff feels connected. Knowing that Loki is going to be there to kind of sum up after Kang, they feel a lot more connected to me now.
Yeah,
So I'm into it.
Like I said, I think this is going to be a cleanup of the fun stuff. This is almost going to be kind of like a one-shot tie-in to what the other movies have been, it feels like, but we won't know until we get it.
Right.
All right, let's briefly talk about Black Widow. I know you two really loved it, so let's lavish that praise on it.
First full Yelena appearance. The good, best opening scene of any MCU project yet. That opening, chilling, moving, had me on the edge of my seat. Holy shit! Like I just couldn't wait for more.
I didn't realize that the girl who plays young Natasha is the daughter of Mila Djokovic.
I didn't know that either, actually.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Resident Evil herself. Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea that, but I do know that. I mean, I remember I looked at Lauren because we watched it as a family. I looked at Lauren like, oh my God, this is gonna be fucking amazing. I had really high hopes, and then the rest of the movie happened. And my excitement quickly faded. I will say, Florence she's just a whole movement on her own. She's amazing. I'm excited there. I don't think this was necessarily a Black Widow story. It was the birth of the new Black Widow, and I can get behind that. I just thought that the tropes were really cheesy. The accents killed me. It's just, you can always tell when an American is doing a foreign accent as opposed to when a foreign individual is doing an American accent. And to hear them for that long, just...
Well, to be fair, in this case, you had two Brits doing Russian accents and then a few Americans doing Russian accents.
Mm-hmm. I didn't like any of them. But
yeah,
don't forget
Florence's wasn't. Yeah.
Don't forget we're still in the good.
Oh yeah. So, I did enjoy some of the fight scenes. The story, the plot was just horrendous. After Tim, did Jeanette share it with us? From the director, the article she sent us about. Clearly, this guy didn't know anything about the comics when he talked about Taskmaster and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So my good is done. The Taskmaster hint. Yeah, I was really excited, and I understand that wasn't necessarily Taskmaster. That was just really a big letdown to me. And to be quite honest, I just didn't care about that storyline. I thought Natasha taking back what was taken from her was really powerful. However, I think that they did it in a very corny manner in a lot of ways. And given how much of a badass she's been throughout this entire universe, she deserved much better than that. I don't know. I had a lot of high hopes for it. I was really excited about it. But it fell flat in a lot of areas for me. And it felt like it was more of an appeasement film than it was a film to really wrap up Natasha's story and progress anything. I don't know. The end credit scene I absolutely loved. That was incredible. And the more I see of Julia Louis-Dreyfus there, the more excited I get about her arc. Tim and I were nerding out about that the other day.
She's been on screen for less than 10 minutes total, and she's already killing it so bad.
Already one of my favorite parts of the MCU.
Yeah.
I'm all about it. I'm not going to trash it for the same reason people are. I love to see women kicking ass. I don't think that the movie was too feminine. That was the point of this movie, to have some powerful kick-ass women. So I love that. I just did not like the story for them. And I don't know. It was a miss for me, but I love that so many people did enjoy it. And I know many people have watched it 3 or 4 times now, and I love that for them. but it's going to be just a little bit above Thor: Dark World for me. So we'll probably not get another rewatch until I have to do it for some other reason.
Tim?
Greg, you can go ahead and give yours. We'll make a sandwich out of it.
So what you're saying is the filling, the good stuff, the correct opinion is right there in the middle, sandwich between your sourdough breads.
Yes.
Ooh, let's do a sourdough starter group here.
So I'm with the exact opposite of everything Dan said, except for the beginning. Essentially, the beginning was phenomenal. But the fight scenes to me were mostly a miss, with the exception of that fight scene between ScarJo and Florence Pugh. I loved how the actions
cool.
they mirrored, and they had to call a draw for the standoff. I love that fight scene, and I loved the first Taskmaster fight scene, so we could see that mimic technology. And
Was that on the bridge?
Yeah, so we got to see Spider-Man and Black Panther moves. So if you didn't have an idea of what Taskmaster was, you got a sense there that this person can do other people's moves, even if you didn't know. It was like mimicking. Although we did get a shot of Taskmaster watching the moves, but like, so if you didn't tie it together between the scene of the watching and the bridge, like, you're helpless. But those were the only real fight scenes I liked. The car chase, I know Dan in his Facebook said it felt like the Fast and the Furious team. And that was, thankfully, it was short, the car chase, and I did like the breaking the door off, but that was in the previews. In the final battle where they're falling from a fucking space station, that kind of lost me. I remember my favorite review of the movie was, turns out Black Widow's powers, she's concussion proof. I also I saw someone point out that Natasha should have broken her back 3 different times throughout the movie, and whatever, heightened sense of reality. They missed me, but that's because I genuinely loved the story. Natasha has now lost her 3rd family. She thinks her mother abandoned her. She lost her foster super spy family, and now the Avengers have broken up and she's on the run. So she's distraught. She's on this mission. She's reliving the gruesome final deed she had to do to be done with gruesome deeds. And I think that's where, I know people, including some people in this chat right now, really hated the Taskmaster switch up, but I loved it. Like, this is once again Natasha's past coming back to haunt her. And guess what? They called it Taskmaster Initiative. Like, we can get another Taskmaster. We can get your quippy Deadpool light Taskmaster, guys. We actually got a good story with this one. We got
my biggest thing is, in all the merchandising and all of the collectibles, it was all Taskmaster. Like, that's how they marketed it. And so if they were to say it's Taskmaster Initiative, all right, cool. I mean, as a fan of this character, looking forward to seeing this villain, I have no problem with them going a different direction that goes in her story, but don't advertise it as something completely different and then fuck us that way. Because to me, yeah, it may have been a good story, but I already stuck my middle finger up at the screen then. I was like, all right, fuck this. I don't even care anymore. Simply because of how it was teased, and the marketing, I think, did it.
It was it was leaked that this was going to be a female Taskmaster.
I tried not to read anything before it. Yeah. I tried to avoid that for everything, but Tim and I have been geeking out about Taskmaster since the merchandise started, 2 years ago. And, from the pops, the figures, to the legends, everything indicated that, and cool for them for fooling us. But
never follow the Marvel. The Marvel Legends toys are great because you get to spotlight characters that sometimes got buried in the comics. But the Marvel Legends come out because the character's in a movie, but it's not the movie version of the character usually. It is some iconic comic book appearance of it.
But even the Black Widow line of pops that came out that are always for the movie, it was Taskmaster. And,
right. No, Shang-Chi, they came out with all the characters from the movie.
Well, Shang-Chi looks like the characters for the most part are gonna be comic book accurate.
Looks very comic accurate. But yeah, so I mean, I could have taken any character, even if they want to introduce new one. I don't really care if they want to do a spin. I'm cool with that. It just didn't. That part just lost me there, simply because I felt cheated, I guess.
I loved it. And the nature of comic books is we could have 14 billion Taskmasters and you guys might like one. You guys might hate them all. Like that's the nature of comic books. And especially when they've made it a mantle and not so much because clearly this character, because of the end of the movie where she loses the mind control, this character is not going to be a Taskmaster going forward. I think this movie accomplished so much. Like obviously introducing Florence Pugh, like what a fucking firecracker. And ultimately, and it's almost impossible to give resolution to a character when that character is already dead in storyline and this takes place in the middle of the arc. But I think it purposely left the Natasha window wide open because Marvel still wants her to come back for this role. I know she said she's done, she's leaving it, this is how it wrapped up. But if in 5 years she's like, you know what, I would love to tell another story of what Black Widow was doing at some certain point, Marvel will do that. So they've now given themselves 2 widows to play within a franchise. They could do a whole like widow series. They set it all up. Like there's so many girls still out there mind controlled. And ultimately, the best part of this movie was the give and take between the widows. I mean, the whole vest thing, that vest thing was both hilarious and heartbreaking at the same time. I mean, to imagine to be that hung up on a vest and to have your sister be dismissive of it until you go into that spiel about how it's the first choice you ever made, the first thing you chose for yourself.
I actually really like that scene.
That was a fucking gut punch. And then they addressing the removing of the ovaries and the reproductive organs. I thought that was handled so well because it was such a black mark on the Red Room and the Widow program, and probably because the stuff we didn't wanted was left on the cutting floor. But for them to force their adopted father to face that fact, but not dwell on it, I thought that was handled beautifully. I think you can just tell there's more females behind the scenes on this than there have been in previous Widow stuff.
I just felt like a lot of it got dismissed after the telling, I guess. You know, and I know it's a movie, it has to move along. But I would have liked those points to have been resonating a bit more. I do think that the scene where Natasha smashes her head on the desk.
Sever the nerve.
Yeah, sever the nerve there. That was really the ultimate moment of taking it back because she didn't care what was going to happen next. She was in control of her destiny at that moment. And that was a moment that I felt was really special because we've seen her do everything for everyone else this entire time, and that was for her. And so that right there was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't mind how like it felt a little dismissive because these women are moving on. For Natasha, this is multiple times she's had to move on. And thankfully, this moving on brought her more closure with her family. But like shutting down the Red Room, no matter like they think they're going to die. Like this is a suicide mission they're signing up for. And honestly, it should have been a suicide mission, but obviously we know Natasha has to go on and run the Avengers. But even it made when she's eating the peanut butter and jelly and she's looking so stressed in the last Avengers film because she's trying to keep her family again because she's already lost family 3 times at this point.
Right.
And as far as the end credit scene, I would have just loved if it was just Yelena at her sister's grave and that's it. End it there and then start the Hawkeye series with the rest of it. I don't need Val ruining that moment. You get a moment to grieve your sister in this nice, quiet moment. That's what that scene should have been in my mind. Because
Val's not there for these calm, quiet things. She's there to wreck your world and fuck it all up.
That's Val shouldn't have been there.
So,
like Val
doing it so well.
But I think one of the criticisms, like the 2 biggest criticisms I've heard from people that liked the movie was too little too late, which we talked about. Like this is something Feige wanted to do. His hands were tied. Yeah, and the other one was like, we should have seen Jeremy Renner. We should have seen Sebastian Stan because they stole the Winter Soldier program. And like, to me, that's the biggest, did you miss the fucking point part of it? Like this was the Black Widow movie, not the Black Widow and Hawkeye film.
Right.
This wasn't Winter Soldier middle gap. Like this was supposed to be a Black Widow film, and we got the Widows. Like, so to the people that wanted Jeremy Renner or Sebastian Stan in that, like I love those two portrayals, but fuck you, they didn't fit in this movie.
Wasn't his movie.
Like, do I want a Black Widow Hawkeye film? You're damn fucking right I do, but this wasn't it.
I kind of thought it'd be cool if we got like a Budapest movie, but whatever. We got what we got, and now we.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons they left it kind of open. Like they didn't close. This is the end of the Natasha story. That's why she didn't get the big funeral. First off, the big funeral doesn't fit the character anyway, but like we would love to do solo like one-off Black Widow films. So
Yeah.
Don't do a big closure on it. All right, Tim, bring us back down.
I was also hoping for a Budapest story because it worked for Solo, telling the story of the Kessel Run. And I thought that would have been a nice thing to see in this movie. Okay. I'm going to turn my camera off because I need to see the list I sent to Dan.
That was a good answer.
I'll just go down the list. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Dan. Oh, we got. Okay, here we go. So, a lot of my gripes are nitpicky. Like one of my points was about the acting of the girl who played young Yelena.
Made me laugh.
Yeah, again, too little, too late. Expanding on that a little bit, like I've had no reason to care about the Red Room, because they didn't touch on it since Age of Ultron, and if you're gonna do a movie this late, you need more setup. You need just like little snippets to keep us caring, and that's a big reason why the Taskmaster thing didn't work for me, is because I don't give two shits about this guy's daughter. Yeah, it's terrible that she got essentially blown up as a kid, but
So you're saying you needed more setup to hate a room that kidnaps and brainwashes young children?
well, not when you put it that way. No, but just as a story, as a comic book story, it's just been too long, and we've had more setups with like Ragnarok and maybe not so much Steve, as his vision was just him longing Peggy for the most part, but yeah, that I just didn't give. I didn't give two shits about most of the stuff in the movie. I hated the climax where Yelena was going to like jam the stick in the propeller in the wing. For something as cheesy as like yelling, "This was fun," and getting a response of "No," it was just the worst. And it didn't help too that there were like noticeable green screen moments and CGI that was just not good. I'm not usually a stickler for CGI. If it looks like what it's supposed to be, then fine. Like I didn't mind any of the CGI in the Incredible Hulk, as Dan would tell you, or if you want to go over to Into the Panel Comics on YouTube and check out our series where we take our journey through the MCU.
Great plug.
Yeah, that just took me right out of it. And yeah, I agree with Dan that this was the best intro that we've gotten so far. It was really cool to see the kind of life they were living beforehand and how it could be upturned so easily. It was very reminiscent of The Incredibles to me. except in times of danger. It was just when Bob screwed up. And I didn't mind the main villain, Dreykov. He gave me real Stryker vibes from X2, Brian Cox. But yeah, overall, I was pretty indifferent towards him. He was fine, but oh God, there's just 4 more points. Okay, four more points. I'm just gonna read verbatim what I wrote. Dan. We needed Tony Masters. The fights that we got for quote unquote Taskmaster they were way too short, and there was a flaw in his design. Like she needed to have that information uploaded into her helmet before she was able to utilize it. So that just makes that fight with Red Guardian just go right out the window for me, metaphorically and later physically, because the station was collapsing. There were just no stakes because it was just meaningless in the long run. But David Harbour, man, he fucking nailed it. He gave, in my opinion, the right amount of comedy for the role. And yeah, I hope he comes back. He was just so great. Rachel Weisz, on the other hand, I love Rachel Weisz. She's always going to be Evie from The Mummy for me. But her character was just meh. I mean, she's playing a kid.
Very underutilized.
Yes. In that heyday, I know they were undercover as the parents, but I would have loved to have seen her actually wear like her Iron Maiden stuff and show that she was just as dangerous of an operative as Red Guardian was, and that they both had their roles. I know they did go into her role, but it was just, again, you have these characters, but they're not using them correctly. But again, who am I to say how they're using them correctly or what correctly is? Last point I'm going to make is just, I again agree with Dan. Florence Pugh was amazing. She, her and Scarlett together, just doing the sisterly stuff, with the vest, with the, drinking the beers out at the table, and that really was the best part of the movie. They just have great chemistry together as movie siblings. And I also lied. There's gonna be one more point that I didn't notice until my second viewing. They shoehorned in that the Firefly thing and the American Pie thing, and again, underutilized, misused, whatever you want to say, what have you. And yeah, it felt like a very corporate movie. It felt like a forced movie. And if we were giving this a ranking, I'd put this just barely above Dark World.
Yeah, I'm there.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
But it did introduce us to this just badass character who,
yes,
one of the young ones they're bringing in that will hopefully be around for a while. That's why they bring in the younger talent to build on. So she's just such a scrapper. I mean, even her come up to get to where she is, in Hollywood, her come up story is just amazing, and just it all comes out of the screen. I'm so excited for the introduction of this character.
Yeah. Side note on Florence Pugh, she, on a live edition of Real Doctors Fake Friends, teaches how to make her version of a martini. Spoiler alert, her version of martini is just vodka. So if you didn't like her enough from that performance,
Cheers.
She drinks You said something interesting about the Rachel Weisz in this movie, Tim, and
Mhm.
I don't completely disagree. She was definitely underused in this,
Yeah.
but just when the parent child like pair off in Rachel Weisz's house and how it's David Harbour and Florence Pugh like both throwing fastballs at each other off in this other room. I
Making
thought,
toilet and making
yeah,
toilet in this.
and then it's just like a quieter moment between
Yeah.
Natasha and Melina, and I think that's just even like I don't think if we hadn't seen ScarJo do this role for so long, I think a lot of people would have, and not would have. There were a lot of people that talked about how she was underused in this movie, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think she was purposely playing the more dour person because this is her last movie. I'd say the odds are this is a 50-50 chance this is her last movie, but she's done being the widow feature in the MCU. So I
Yeah.
wonder like how much it was just kind of a missed attempt to have Rachel Weisz play it down because they knew David Harbour was going to be the turn. Because it really did feel like it set up, even if Florence Pugh's not involved in it, there's going to be a spin-off of those two righting the wrongs of the Red Room. That's just the way they set that up.
That was announced today, actually. So we'll
Okay.
be getting Iron Maiden and we'll be getting Red Guardian
Yeah.
back. Not in what capacity, that could very well. I could see that tying in nicely with the next Falcon Winter Soldier project, to be honest. More the grounded approach, but they'll be back.
Well, even like the Antonia, like Olga, like Kurylenko's been around for forever. Like she is Ukrainian, so they got someone to play that Antonio character with some chops too. So I could see her being a big part of some like let's right the wrongs of my father in his red room type situation. The most misused person in this movie, though, was William Hurt. Like
Yes.
Ross served zero purpose other than to reinforce that this happened right after Civil War.
Yeah.
Right.
Which they could have done with his voice. They didn't need to have him phone in some performances. Like the first one where he's like answers the call from Scarlett Joe and is like, that's not a bad spiel, but especially at the end, it was just like, hey, let's book in Ross in this film so we can remind people. Which
did you guys see what David Harbour is? He's been on a huge ass press tour the last 2 weeks. I've been loving it. He pitched his own Red Guardian movie to Marvel. He wants a prequel to Red Guardian so he can actually show himself fighting Captain America. And it wasn't a joke. He wants to do this prequel because he actually loves this character so much. And the interesting thing about the character, he's not in a lot of issues. I actually am about to sell first and last appearance of him. But
and it's the same issue. How crazy.
2 issues. I think it's 43 and 44. It's 43 and 45, I think. But he pitched these ideas before Black Widow even was there. Like, so the commitment to the character is incredible. And he has said he will be back, and Rachel will too. And in what capacity, they don't know. But he's just been, it's almost like he's just baiting Marvel at this point. Like, I want to do this, but he's doing it through the media and through, like, he was on Hot Ones the other day and stuff. So, like, through these outlets, he's like throwing it out there. Let me do this. So it's just fun to watch. He's having a blast with it. He did a great job. And so I think it's kind of cool. I love when these, sometimes there's the actors who play the role, like when we had Jude Law come in for no fucking reason. And then there's the actors who get really caught up and really love and have passion for these roles. And I love that they seem to find so many of them, from young Tom Holland to a David Harbour kind of wanting to finish out his healthier years in action. So it's really cool to see his passion and commitment for it.
Well, as great as some of these performances were, I think the best performance, like if you were going to talk PER for basketball terms here, the highest PER in this film was O.T. Figbenno, who played Mason. Like, he was just fucking stellar. Like, he sparkled in every scene, and I want to see the movie of how him and Natasha became so close. Like, why is he jump setting countries for her? Like, that's what I want. That's the story I want. And does that continue on? Like,
I think so. And we're going to get a lot more of that. I think he's going to move on with the new Widow.
Yeah. My guess is he's probably gonna have some ties he knew about since he knew about the safe house. He's probably got Renner like Hawkeye ties too. So
yeah,
his
he's not a
performance
throwaway
was
character by any means.
his performance was too good in this film, and they made mention of the lengths he went through for Natasha too much. I know it was only twice, but too much for it not to be significant. So
the leak that I saw originally pegged him as Taskmaster, and that's how I got excited for it. and then here we are.
Now, pre-pandemic, I saw the leak of it being a female Taskmaster. So
I try to avoid all of it.
Yeah, that's not what I saw.
You saw it on We Got It Covered, though. That was your problem.
Oh God.
Oof. Oh, that's insulting.
I did
dog shit on their front steps.
So I did see a headline that I got really excited for today on Facebook. It was Star Trek bringing back Captain Sisko, and I got really excited. And then I saw it was from We Got It Covered, and I'm like, "Fuck, fuck! I love Sisko. I wanted him back in Star Trek." So now I'm convinced it's not going to happen, even though I have seen some other things about him changing the ending of Deep Space Nine himself. And
so they have infiltrated my friend group where, because of all the MCU and stuff like that, I have friends who got into the movies and the shows, and they'll send me links like, "Hey, did you see this?" And we got this covered. I'm like, and then I have it saved to my phone now for the copy and paste of why not to share this site with me and why not to get excited about these things. And it's General Akbar's a trap, because fuck, I just hate that site so goddamn much.
So there's a subreddit called Ate the Onion with people who believe onion articles. There should be one for We Got This Covered, like you got covered.
That is good. I love people who fall for onion articles.
Yeah, it's the best.
And kudos to the Onion for the fact that they've found this niche of people who are just dumb.
Yeah.
All right, anything on Widow before Tim, you already did it, but before Dan and I give our Mephisto Reed Richards Locks of the Week?
I'm good.
I'm good as well.
So, did you guys want to go on a hiatus until What If, or did you guys want to do a couple like just random fun episodes?
I think I could wait till What If because I'm not good with random.
Yeah,
but same. I'm wrapping up summer program over the next 2 weeks, so I am definitely good with a little break, and then we resume our Battle of the Ballads, which I have to do a lot of research for now that we're heading into the 2000s.
Yeah. Okay, Dan. Mephisto Reed Richards Lock of the Week, which I guess will actually be for a couple weeks since we'll be on a short hiatus.
We will not see this until 2023, but Renslayer is running the TVA. Mine's a long burn.
Yeah, that is a long burn. I mean, we could see it sooner because it could slide into one of those films as well.
True.
My lock of the week is something I would actually love to see, but at some point we will see some combination of Strange, Wanda, a Loki, maybe Mobius, maybe a couple Spider-Men, but at one point we'll see them in a black room or void as we're seeing dimensions and timelines swirl around them, and the song Time After Time plays.
Oh god, that'd be an amazing story to create for a reel.
I already did it using that. Wait,
Yeah,
for a real.
For the story.
Yeah, the one where I put all three of our heads on the timekeepers. I use Time After Time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's been stuck in my head since then. So, which is now why I'm imagining like galaxies and worlds and multiverses spinning around them. Also, there's an episode of X-Men the animated series, and I forget which like time being they use, but like I think it's Wolverine ends up like in a time stream, and he's like watching other worlds and stuff. And I kind of picture that as well.
I think he ultimately ends up in the Savage Land, doesn't he?
Yes. That was like after like Marvel filed bankruptcy and sold it, right?
It made no fucking sense.
Yes. Yeah. All right, guys. So you guys don't know when you're resuming over on the YouTubes?
No, this week.
This week? Okay.
Oh, it is this week?
It is this week.
Oh, okay. Works for me.
All right, so check that out. I don't know when we're coming back for Battle of the Bows, Dan, but sometime
Next week, I believe, actually.
Okay.
And then I want to give a shout out to Bellboy Brand Investments, who had me on as a guest last night to talk about the investment in comic books. But I also was able to give not only this show a plug, but Cool Points a plug as well for their audience. So we opened up into the financial sector, and I've been getting messages since about, can I appraise people's collections? So might be an uptick in viewers on there too. It was a great time. It was nice to talk about value in a sense of just investing in things that you love as opposed to investing in things that you want to sell. So that was pretty fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to listen to it today, but work sucked today, so I didn't get a chance to it. It'll be something I listen to that interview sometime this week, probably. Yeah, as you mentioned, Cool Points. Follow it on Facebook or just substack.com/Cool Points newsletter. I'll be doing a retro edition that I did one a couple weeks ago when I wasn't feeling well, which I listened back to the pod we recorded that week, and I think I like my voice at 1.5 times speed with a cold better than I ever do any other time. So maybe I'll permanently have a cold. But yeah, the retro one got the most views of a newsletter I've done in a while. So
nice.
I'll be throwing on another retro one. Maybe I'll make it a regular Wednesday feature where I dip into my writing archives and throw a retro Cool Points your way. But guys, always a pleasure to be the delicious correct meat in your sourdough bread.
I hate that so much.
Don't worry, it won't last. This is the last time we'll ever say it.
All right, my friend.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Toodles.